So, well, thank you. This is going to be kind of a strategy session. This is our first strategy session that's kind of open. And now let's dig into what we already have as the foundation and then take it to the next level in different pieces, wherever the kind of the energy flows. Brandon, did you want to bring up that email or should I?
I was trying to put it in the chat. It was taking a second here. There it goes.
Okay, maybe we can do a screen share.
Sure, I can do that.
Yeah. That way everybody can be looking at the same thing. So I'm looking at this, and I have been, as it's evolved for 15 years, I've been kind of obsessed with this. But the more I learn about permaculture, and the more I look at the permaculture questions and process and principles as the foundation for this movement, it just aligns in a divine way, like so perfectly. So I'm looking at the major kind of energy centers of our society as elements. In the permaculture world, when you stack the functions of elements, then using the permaculture principles, then everything works better, right? So the first element is the network of permaculturalists globally. And that within that network is the solution to all the world's biggest problems when it comes to regenerative agriculture. And then within the principles, it expands to just having a permanent culture, right? Politicians. There's a lot of energy, right? That's where, how many trillions of dollars do we spend a year? Like 13 trillion or 17 trillion. When we can inspire a tiny percentage of that, 1% of that to be used wisely, and we give very specifics on what that means. That means taking out the poisons and using natural systems and food instead of ornamentals. That one thing will change the world radically, right? It'll go from death and dying and scarcity to life and abundance. So I guess I'll kind of go through them all, and then please jump in, by the way. Like that's what this is about. I'll give kind of an overview, and then I want to go into these different pieces one by one and just kind of start layering the details. So in other words, we're starting with a one-page summary on a business idea, and we're going to go to a 3-page executive summary. And then by the end of the 4th of July, or at least as a catalyst because of the 4th of July event, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, then it'll be a full-on business plan. So politicians, we want to inspire politicians to run using the permaculture principles as their campaign. And what does that mean? This is where it gets to be a lot of fun when you kind of go down and get a little granular. When a politician is standing in front of a community park or even a church, and they've got the community behind them, and they're saying, okay, so with this, and I'm going to use Chris Messina as an example. He's got a $5.5 billion budget as mayor of Orange County. And I just learned something. They do have mayors in counties here now, not just in cities, which is kind of a change. But anyway, when he uses whatever percentage of that 5.5 billion to do exactly what we're talking about, it will radically change this county. It'll create food abundance for everybody within the county. It'll take it from food scarcity and non-self-reliance to complete self-reliance over one term. One term could radically change this place. So he's going to be one of our many kind of proof of concept guys and gals. So what our goal for this 4th of July, one of the goals, is to present this political campaign strategy in a way that it's adopted by politicians running for office or people considering running for office all over the world. And this is offices as HOA presidents all the way up to presidents of countries. I'm going to stop right there and just let that sink in and get your feedback on that for a sec.
Well, I am a politician, so I guess I can speak from that angle. I'm actually an elected supervisor of New Hanover Soil and Water Conservation District. And New Hanover County. So it's a state level designation. It's actually an ideal vehicle to implement food, forest, and regenerative methods because they have relationships with agriculture in every county in the United States, soil and water districts do. So there's a lot of opportunity there on that level. But what I hear in your prompt there is a lot of really important things. We need politicians to be inspired to change things. My take on that is that politicians don't change things. And, I don't want to be discouraging, but
No, that's the problem.
right.
That's the problem, that they don't typically change things.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, typically, I think that's fair. And I don't want to paint a broad black and white stroke because that's not how life shows up. But in general, politicians follow, right? It's the people that make them change. And that's particularly true within these rhythms that we've established around conventional land care and agriculture, because corporatism is a real thing. And ultimately someone, if it's not the person you're talking to, has been paid off to do things in a certain way. So there's a lot of resistance to this. The possibility that we're coming to is the fact that, we can't continue to do the things the way that we've been doing them, right? And so that's the timing of this project, honestly, in that regard, in terms of my sense, is ideal. I just wonder, at this point, other than to say there is a way to make a political issue. I mean, I'll give you a specific example. It's taken me 2 years to do this, by the way, but I've got a natural turf management pilot project alive in Wilmington, North Carolina. And it came through the mayor and me sitting down with the mayor and saying to the mayor, more or less, Mr. Mayor, try drinking a beer without yeast. That was the line that hooked him. He's a beer drinker, and you could see he'd never thought about a microorganism in his life. And all of a sudden he was respecting them, right? Because they make his beer. And he leaned in and he sort of was like, huh? And he kind of gave me the time to really connect him to the reality of living soil and how it can help to solve the stormwater problems we have and meet the carbon sequestration commitments that we don't know how to meet and all of the things. It's a systems thinking play, right? And you can't solve dynamic problems with linear thinking. And that's really what politicians in the positions that they are currently are, for the most part, is linear thinkers, whack-a-mole sort of thing, right? Kill the weed with the pesticide. It's simple as that. So there's a huge learning curve that has to happen for the people who aren't the right politicians, and they're few and far between at this point, but they do exist. And I guess I wonder,
wait a minute. I'd like to jump in where I see something that I believe is maybe could be stated in a more productive way with regard to our goals. They don't need to learn permaculture. They just need to learn the value of permaculture.
Well, I don't agree with that. I'm not.
Okay. Well, you said there's a huge learning curve. When we say to a politician, there's a huge learning curve. I just want to be clear on that they're probably not going to do it. Right? Well,
sure. I'm not proposing that we teach politicians about permaculture. I'm suggesting that the learning curve is pesticides are bad for you. Things like that, right? So there is a huge learning curve because of all of the things that they have to learn. So yeah, I think we're aligned in that. I guess the point that I would just make in regards to how to make what I'm saying here relevant to this event is that I don't really know the nature of this event. I don't know, are you inviting politicians to this event? Like, how does this event engage what we're talking about here?
So I'll lay out the event. So we're meeting on the 2nd of July, and we're having a meet and greet and then our first strategy session. It'll be a result of kind of what this and other strategy sessions give us as the foundation, and then we'll share that with the group and we'll say, okay, this is our first look at all of the elements and how we combine those to create the strategy that changes the world. So yes, there will be politicians there, probably several. One I think will be in person, and maybe 2 or 3 more virtually. And so we're going to have a strategy session. We're going to have 4 strategy sessions. And then after the 4 strategy sessions, we're going to basically speak to the world via live stream. And we're going to share with the world all of the different elements, how they work together in their individual elements, and then how we all come together and unite to basically take freedom back for our planet, for humanity. And then what's happening next is it's going to go out. We're going to have, it sounds like thousands of influencers and content producers are going to be covering the event as news people do, right? And they're going to be sharing the event with their networks. Just the networks that we have represented that have already said yes is hundreds of millions of people in their audiences, right? But we want to expand that massively. And then once we do, it will be picked up by everybody ethical. And we're going to focus on the solutions too. We're not going to be talking about BlackRock and all that shit at this thing. We're going to really dive directly into the solutions. Any questions about that?
Politics is downstream from culture. You know, the politicians will follow you once you got a movement going. Yeah. They'll all run to the head of the parade and act like it was their idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
yeah. And just as a side note, I spent 30 minutes with, there were 2 Harvard and 2 Yale law degrees in the room, and I pitched them for 25 minutes, and they just sat there going, and they completely evolved their campaign strategy to do exactly what I'm sharing with. So, and that was one pitch. I've had 2 more since then, and they also want to do it. So what we do is we show the politicians that this is best for them. This is how they get all the ethical Republican votes. They get all the ethical independent votes, and they bring over some of the Democrats because we're speaking to the Democratic narrative of climate change and save the bees and the green movement. So we're going to speak in a way that's very understandable that the politicians are going to, for greedy reasons, and I'm not using that term in a negative way at this moment, they're going to want to do this.
And mine's not so much a question, but also on, say, the grant side of things. You know, we do have those grants where we do need local governments to be the main applicant, where our team can help put together the application. And then they would just basically take some of the work out of it. Because I don't think it's the money aspect, like they do have budgets. But then the grant, along with the grant, comes the help to put it together. So maybe that's pull some of them in.
Freaking amazing. So, Lindsay, let's put that down as a bullet point for politicians. Support with grants. And then what does the grant do? It puts a food forest in a public area that the politician gets to say is because of their good graces.
And that's something, if I could jump in real quick, Jim, that's something that Jim and I have discussed regarding the macro kind of approach to this is, to what the one gentleman, and forgive me, I don't know everyone yet, was saying about, a politician running to the front of parade and staking his flag as his idea. We want them to do that. We're handing you the campaign. Here's the campaign to win. So if you don't want to carry it, your opposition will. Right. So here is the campaign that reduces government spending, that increases community participation and public relations, that achieves this, and this punch list from your future objectives. We find, here's the solution. We hand it to you. And not only that, we can, here's where you find the funding. And here's where you find the support to actually do the installation. So I think, it's absolutely take it. Good job, Mayor. That was a great idea. I think that's the approach we take. Well
said, Stephen. And while you're saying that, you basically named a couple things. Let's actually name those and bullet point those things. Maybe not on this call, but let's afterwards, maybe Lindsay can send out a follow-up email to all of us. And then it'll say politicians. And then it'll bullet point the reasons why the politicians will benefit from running this campaign so that they can see kind of what you were just alluding to there, Stephen.
And I think, Lindsay, if you haven't already, the final page of the Sprouts NFT green paper has some of those thoughts from that perspective of the project. So that could be of use for you already.
Awesome. I haven't seen that. If anybody can email that to me, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can link it to you. It's the 4th or 5th use case for the Sprouts NFT project. That's the governmental and local governance adoption. There's some huge implications in that, possibly the ability of that program eventually taking the place of government funding for other projects. So and when I was, kind of thought about, I was talking to Jim about it, and I said, wow, this is, when do you find a strategy that both reduces spending and increases community outreach, right? That feeds low income members of the community while also reducing spending. Talk about bipartisan support. That's pretty rare.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh, this is already blowing my mind. Like, as this group puts these bullet points in for each one of these categories, we'll put a one-pager together for each of these categories, and that'll be the foundation which we build upon at the event on the 4th. All right, any other thoughts on politicians?
None that I could say in public, but that's okay.
Polly is many and ticks are blood-sucking creatures. Yes. Okay, so military. If the military's intention, and at 99% of the military, this is their intention. Their intention is to provide a secure country, right? Is to provide security, is to defend against enemies, foreign and domestic, and all that stuff, right? Or at least foreign. So then let's bullet point how growing food, how using some of that budget to put food forests in public areas will actually speak to their oath of defending by creating local self-reliance. I mean, the first thing that any military army does is they take out the food supply. Well, which is happening now, right? So then we show them this is, without getting too down that rabbit hole, we kind of bullet point that. Any thoughts on that, you guys?
Well, my first thought is the military's, mostly bought out, right? So that while the stated goal is one thing, very few of them are bought into that anymore.
At the high levels.
One of them that is General McInerney, a general who's come out against everything that's going on. And that got me to thinking, as you're talking about military, that maybe it'd be good to try to get some people in each of these categories that are as high up the food chain as we could get,
yes,
as quickly as possible.
Yes. In fact, can you get a hold of General McInerney?
I know the people that know him. Yeah. So
okay.
Have you seen his stuff that he's been saying?
I have. I'd love to chat with him. This is the event for him we, with all the support we have coming in, this is the event that will get his voice heard. And as long as he's a real deal, and I very much think he is, then he will agree with our strategy here.
He's as much as anybody that can be trusted in that area right now, right?
Good deal.
So, but I'm also thinking about some people on the political front that might be able to run it up flagpoles a little bit faster and get a few more, get some top down in. I don't know if we can get to the top in each of these categories, but get some top down buy-in and influence going with this, so that it's not just all grassroots. Get somebody pulling from the other side.
That's exciting when we can start putting faces and names that are recognizable. Now, we're all aware that at the top, there's some really shicery stuff going on. But even let's say we get some people that are down 5, 6, 7, 8 levels down from the top, they'll see this and they'll say, oh my gosh, this is it. And then they'll start making a fuss about it within their network. And we inspire from within by showing them a clear direction towards what their spoken goal is and what their heart is telling them. And then, of course, they're going to bump up against resistance, but then they're going to say, wait a minute, why are you resisting this? Right? So we tear them apart from the inside, just like they're doing now with the Hegelian dialectic and divide and conquer to humanity. We use their same strategy back against them.
What I really love about this, and in listening to you all speak, in this section, is that I'm an artist. I think in images, and I just had a wonderful image of a governor. A general in full regalia, full uniform, coming out to one of our sites and planting a fruit tree. I think that's a powerful image. And again, I think of the unity this creates between the division of political parties when you can, I think back to the, any gun owners might recall the World War II, the consensus among the Japanese about a direct invasion of the United States. in which some of the higher ups reportedly said that we could never make a direct invasion of the United States because there was a gun behind every blade of grass, and that idea of American independence, the idea that America can take care of itself, I think is very strongly held or aspired to by the right. And then at the same time, the idea that food is security from foreign dependence. And on the opposite side, you have food, not bombs, right? You have a very aligned message of, we're going to put down our weapons for the moment and secure our country in a different way. And I think that's pretty neat.
Oh man, that visual Lindsay, could you take note of the visual that Stephen just spoke about? Because I love that visual. Maybe
I'm taking all the notes.
Next layer on that is having a bunch of veterans all plant a tree as well.
Yes.
Because the veterans kind of even speak louder than the current stuff.
Right. Brings it down to the local level, the regular Joe.
And that's who we really need to sway in our favor when it comes to making the larger impact. It is the local people. Because if we think about who is the controllers, they are the ones at the top. But it's always the small that has the most influence when they have the numbers. So the question always becomes, how do we get the numbers moving in the right direction? And I think it is by impacting at the local level, finding the leadership at the local level to make change at the local level, which improves the community, which in time filters up. Mm-hmm. And our language around 3 of the major things that people talk about today, climate change, pandemics, food crisis, we solve all 3. So we get to say to every politician, which one of these is most important to you? So now we're not saying it, they are. Mm-hmm. And they'll tell us what is the most important thing to them. My guess for most would be food, but I don't know. It might be climate change. It might be pandemics. But we all know the reality is the healthier you are, the healthier food you consume, the less impacted you are from the pandemic. We know that growing food on site reduces diesel consumption and climate change and sequesters carbon and all of that, right? So we have the key to 3 of the, and maybe even more, but the 3 major talking points that all the politicians have right now. We have that solution, and now it's just a matter of getting a strategic move, Tim, and finding out where all of them are and blasting those cell phones with that info and having them say,
you already know I have that.
Exactly, right? And then having them say, hey, it's this one for me, okay? And we don't really care which one they say. We just now have the thing that we get to use against them strategically.
Yeah, so there's
here's the solution to that thing. Oh, you don't want to do anything about it? So are you telling us the truth or are you fucking lying to us again? Right?
Well, if they're going to do that, that's in their DNA. But there's 19 million vets, and almost every one of them has the VA app on their phone, and we can target them by the app. So,
what's neat about that too is I could imagine in the future we have a near future. We have a group of veterans in each kind of local region, like local chapters, that might come together on, the 3rd Saturday of the month or something, and come out to food forest installs and volunteer their labor for an hour or 2. And that would give us a huge opportunity to maybe do some interviews, because I feel like a lot of veterans are discouraged with upper command during their service time, and can speak to again the local Joe, the average citizen, and say, listen, I was a member of the military to protect my country, and this is the way I'm doing it today, right? This is the way I'm protecting my country today. I think, again, from an image perspective, to say, this is whatever we want to call them, veterans planting change, or whatever term we have. For a volunteer organization, I think that could be a powerful tie-in.
Veterans for Food or something.
Yeah,
like
exactly. That kind of thing. And we go out with some camera crews.
Food
and we talk
freedom, food self-reliance. Yes,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
Veterans for
people
food
that
freedom.
want to, they'll donate a food patch or whatever we're going to call the smaller thing.
There you go.
You know, to a vet, right?
Yeah,
Well,
a
we
guild.
already have someone who would donate the tree to them.
I can imagine local fundraising for an area in the same way that seats in theaters and opera houses have like donors' names on them. I could imagine, a plaque of a guild, 100th of an acre, dedicated to this platoon or this division or this fallen veteran, or that could be a very cool. And then the local veterans come out to help, the actual installation of that. That's powerful images.
We also have several applicants for the $100 million grant that are vets. So when that comes through, they will be planting it, and this will be a pure example of it.
So cool. Holy cow. Okay.
Really cool.
So then as you're all talking, I'm imagining a one pager for each of these done here as soon as possible over the next few days. We'll just get the start of the bullet points, like an executive summary one pager. And then we'll just keep layering the details in. Oh man, that's exciting.
Also on military, Lindsay, put down Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, because I know him. And I think he's going to take over the NRA too, it looks like. So
Wow.
At least that's the rumor. We'll see if that's true.
That's exciting.
So yeah, I had sponsored him in a housing development we have. So I've got his cell phone anyway. We'll see if he answers it.
Love it. Okay, anything else on military stuff? I know there's a lot more, but
We
go
like
ahead.
military.
Yeah. I mean, the people who I know who went into the military are some of the most hardy, ethical, wonderful people, and then of course we know what happens at the very top in some cases. So anyway, I'm excited to get that. That's going to be a big piece. Education. Now, schools right now, if the educational board did the same thing and said, we're going to start this year, every school is going to have a food forest on all of its borders. And then we're going to use that food forest as a community educational tool, as a nursery, for all these stack of functions, reasons. When education does that instead of watering lawns and ornamentals, then that could immediately change the world. Like within, again, 5 to 7 years, we could have complete food self-reliance nationally or internationally, depending on if it's adopted internationally, right? So who do we know that's high up in the world of education that could kind of see this more clearly from within the system?
A thought comes to mind. I don't know him personally, but I am related to some work he did. I don't know if you all know the celebrity chef Jamie Oliver. He's a British chef. He did a series a number of years back in which he went to some small towns in southern West Virginia, which is where I'm from. And he went into the public school system with an attempt to dramatically change nutrition in the public school lunch programs. And he was met with a lot of opposition, and he stayed and he persevered, and he produced a television series on this. He did the same thing in the UK, and then they brought him stateside. He met a lot of opposition at first, but he was like, listen, kids in your classrooms don't know where ketchup comes from. We need to educate these kids. And when he left, so they shot a season of this television show, and he worked with individual families and whatnot. That's Huntington, West Virginia. The college there is Marshall University. I'm a grad of Marshall University, and I know folks that worked on the production. So the production of the series. I don't know Jamie personally, but again, we might know the people to get to him.
Okay.
It might be neat if as a using his celebrity platform to be able to say, here's a group of people. So yeah, he was wanting to say, here's he provided education to the lunch program, to the the school districts, to the children themselves, to the families in the communities, and actually left behind a not-for-profit organization that gave away free cooking classes and nutrition classes. So this might be a really cool tie-in for, it's been a number of years ago, but this might be a really cool tie-in to be able to say, well, now schools can learn about the production of food and grow it on site. Well, that might be an option.
Please reach out to him. I'd love to talk with that fella.
Probably get to Betsy DeVos. I don't know how busy she is, but probably get to her.
You know what I found is once people hear about this, then no matter how busy they are, once they understand the significance of this, they
as the food crisis increases, it's going to become, we're in the right place at the right time. That's usually the best thing to have going for you. Yeah, Betsy DeVos, I'm pretty sure I can get to her. Whether I can get to her in time or not, I don't know, because she'll definitely be in Vegas at that event too. You know who she is, right? Yeah.
I know the name. I don't know anything else.
She was Secretary of Education.
Okay. Under who?
Under Trump.
Oh, okay.
Her husband is Rich DeVos, Orlando Magic.
Oh my God. Yes, I would love to chat with her. They're
down there in your neck of the woods too. So that one, and then I told you my partner Jim Wimpress. You met him, Jim.
Yeah.
One of his other businesses that he has is called Rank One. It's a software as a service for middle schools and high school kids, and they've got 30% of all the students in America in that. And so as a result, most of their enlistments, I guess, or sales come from the school district or the state level. So there's a lot of really strong relationships there. That I'll check with Jim and his guys at Rank One and see what we can do with that.
Awesome.
But then they also have their competitors. There are 3 or 4 biggest competitors between the 3 or 4 of them. They've got about 90% of all the students in America.
Wow.
And so it's real easy to get to all the students, and since there's a cost associated with that avenue, but there's also a way to make that happen. So I'll do that. I'll check with them.
Okay.
Once we start talking food, people's guards go down and their needs go up. So hopefully we can do it that way.
Yep. And we're ahead of the curve as far as the mass awareness of the food supply issues, but it's happening fast, as we all know. So, okay. So anything else on education?
I was just going to add the same thing as the politicians. Is on the same side, we have those grants that the actual schools can apply separately, and they can be the applicant. So it's the same thing. And I feel like it's easier to reach out to them. You could go in different parents groups that have their kids at these schools. The schools can be the main applicant and we can help them with it. I know when Alova did all that research for us, the number of private schools was, I forget how many, but 2,200, exactly. I think there was even more than that. That's like the limit of that funding, what it was. But the point is that those ones are a little bit easier to get in through. Obviously, if you get through a school board, then the numbers are larger. But I think going at the same tactic, like we can help them apply for the funding, will be a good way as well.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. In fact, I was going to wait till the currency to talk about how it ties it all together. And I'll jump into that now. Is the Sprouts yield coin. I'll just talk about it high level, and then I'll hand the floor over to Stephen to talk about it for 5 minutes. Now, Stephen can talk about it for 16 hours straight. And last time I listened to him for 45 minutes, and I had tears in my eyes a couple of times of just joy, right? But we don't have time for that, all those details now. We'll definitely will here soon. When I first started imagining a digital asset, an exchange mechanism, a barter tool that would supplant the debt system and would be born in abundance instead of liability. The basics are, I was like, okay, our current systems are either debt, which is enslavement, which is the fiat currencies, or, and I learned this word, the fiat is a government issued thing, or they're born in liability, like Bitcoin, where it takes a tremendous amount of energy to produce this number, and then we have put a value to that number based on gamblers and gamers. For the most part, all of these currencies are held up by gamblers and gamers. In the currency that I was envisioning, and that Stephen has taken to the next level times infinity, was that we would incentivize food production. We would scale. So this currency would incentivize food. It would be able to scale rapidly. It would be able to supplant the global currencies, along with time banking and seeds and others. Like we don't want to be like the only thing. And by the way, it's owned by the DAO, by humanity, not by any individuals. And it would also incentivize collaboration. Now, imagine a school comes in and they put this food in the ground. Well, where do they get the money to do that? Well, this is where they reach out through a crowdfunding campaign, with every one of the kids going home with either a flyer. I don't want to kill 10 million trees, but a digital flyer to all of the parents of the school. And we put together this incredible video and one pager that says, if everybody chips in an average of, X amount of dollars for this school, we will have a food forest. In essence, it's their food forest. It's the community's food forest. And people who chip in, because they put money that went directly into food into the ground, which relates to calories produced, they also receive a benefit of that. And the benefit is this digital asset. Now, the same goes for all of the different areas, where all of a sudden we completely switch this idea of money being a debt system to money being, instead of run by gamers and gamblers, it's stewarded by ethical producers, right? It switches the energy immediately. And I'd say within a very short amount of time, we could take the energy of society out of the hands of the gamblers and gamers and slave masters and into the hands of the ethical producers.
Currency is the key.
It is. It's the flow of energy. Currency is energy. And it's held in the freaking banks. It's like a river. It's a current, and it's held in the banks, right? Which are all controlled by the same slave masters. When we take that energy and we actually distribute it, not top down, but from the growers, all of a sudden, the energy that we agree to, this is a parallel economy being born. And all of a sudden we agree that we are going to trade in real assets, in ethics, and it's stewarded again by the producers. Man, that just gets me so excited. Stephen, do you want to do a 5 to 7 minute kind of jaunt into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So to jump off just right where Jim was, what that means is that we're putting our investment figuratively and literally from the ground up, right? Think about that for a minute, that rather than the falsitude, the live trickle down economics, we have a saying that we've been throwing around is, plant your fiat. Right? Or compost your fiat, the idea that we're going to put our money in the ground. And that's again, we talk about being in the right place at the right time. There's a major, I'm sure I don't have to tell you all, but there's a major interest right now in, there's a major focus on inflation. We're seeing some of the highest inflation rates that we have in several decades, but it can get a lot worse. If we look at the inflation rates about 100 years ago, around the 1920s, they were much higher. And there is a major fear, with a war in Europe and so on, that hyperinflation is on the way. And one of the
it's from Putin.
And one of the so that's a point. So a narrative we can develop is, why do you want to hold US dollars when you can have Sprouts yield? So let's talk about what Sprouts yields are. There's two pieces to this. Basically, we're returning our model. I think a lot of folks in recent days there's been a resurgence of let's go back to, I hear people all the time say, I want to hold silver. I'm done with US dollars. I want silver, right? Or why can't we go back to a silver standard? in the U.S. or gold standard in the U.S. And the issue with a lot of that is the powers that be don't want it. Going back to a commodities-based asset, a commodities-based currency like a silver certificate or a gold certificate basically negates the possibility of fractionalized banking, the very system that our entire credit is based off of. The ability for banks to essentially print money, to make up money, to loan to people for interest. Beyond that, when you then talk about like holding physical silver or bullion or something, you're just trading one volatility for another. So in going at this, in other words, the US dollar's price is going down on average of, 3.2, 3.5% a year, recently much higher, 7 to 10% a year. Cryptocurrency is wildly volatile, right? It moves, it is a decentralized system, but depending on what you're looking at, it's wildly volatile. To reduce that volatility means just pegging it right back to the fiat currency we're trying to get away from. And then commodities like gold or silver bullion tend to hold value over time, but when they spike around moments of crisis and then can take decades to, they dump after that, and can take decades to recover in price. So you're trading one volatility for another. So in moving into this, our goal was to develop a truly stable asset. So something that actually maintains value over time. And to do that, that requires to think, okay, well, what do we all need? Well, we all need to eat. Everybody's got to eat. And interestingly, we all eat, adults all eat, we all need about the same amount. Some a little more, some a little less, but we can average that, right? We need between 2,000 and 2,400 calories a day, depending on the person, right? And activity level, et cetera. So that means if we base our currency in food, we start to, just by that very nature of that, we start to think very, very differently about things. In other words, a Mercedes C-Class starts to look like 60,000 days of food, right? That's expensive, right? That's decades of food, whereas a $30 pair of work boots seems reasonable if it's going to last us a year or two, right? So what is the US dollar? Well, whatever the hell people say it's worth. We all remember times when gas was under $1 a gallon. We all remember when a loaf of bread was under $1 a loaf, and now it's several times that. So, our goal would be to create an asset that is worth the same today as it is 20 years from now. We can't go back and get 1980s prices, but in 2050, I sure would like to have 2020 prices, wouldn't you? So, how do we do that? Well, if we go in every step of this, we've gone back to nature. We go back to the natural cycle. How do we build value and maintain value? Well, we need a system that's permanent. We need a permaculture. And permaculture presents itself as a means to produce a consistent amount of food over time, abundantly. So to compare that to a model of cryptocurrency where you buy specialized equipment and load chock full of industrial levels of electricity in order to produce a digital asset, our system is very different. We take your dollar, we put it in the ground, we plant food, we grow food, now we have food. So Sprouts NFT is a tokenization. NFT means non-fungible token. That means basically it's unique. A fungible token is like a penny, a US penny, right? A coin is exchangeable, one for another. Bitcoin, exchangeable, one for another. Doesn't matter what they are. A non-fungible token is something that's unique. This is this piece of land. So originally we thought to do this on an install by install basis. So Galt's Landing in Florida, our new Stonewall permaculture in upstate New York. But now we're thinking of doing this in a regional perspective. So in other words, you would hold, for lack of a better term, a certificate of we're still working out the terms because we have to work out some regulatory narratives to make sure that we're on the right side of this, that we can avoid hiccups. At one point in time, we said a certificate of investment. I don't think that's actually a good idea at this point. You're holding a certificate of authenticity, for lack of a better term, which represents your contribution. Certificate of contribution is a great term. Certificate of contribution to the cause of permaculture. And then in that you say, well, hey, I have a tiny piece, or at least my money was put forward. It was planted into the ground to create permaculture. As a result, people who hold those tokens, which are exchangeable, in other words, you could sell it, you could give it away, you could let your family inherit it. They are eligible to receive yield coin, which is our secondary asset. It represents the yield that the permaculture itself makes. So in other words, the fruits and the vegetables, right? So if you hold one asset, it's basically a digitized form of the actual model that we're doing in real life. So it returns us to a barter and trade system without having to lug around bushels and bushels of apples and hope somebody wants your apples for fresh farm eggs, right? We peg yield coin to 100 calories. It's interchangeable for 100 calories. And how do you get yield coin? Well, you invest, you contribute to the expansion of permaculture across the US and eventually globally. So it's a very high-tech way to return to a very ancient barter and trade system in a very efficient way. And we found a way to do it in a very environmentally friendly way using some cutting edge technology. Will actually be carbon negative versus carbon neutral or carbon positive. So
and that's not even the factor that it's incentivizing growing food, which is carbon negative to the max, right? Which
right, in
that
its
whole
own,
carbon
its
narrative,
own state.
but anyway, yeah.
Right, in its own state. So if that's the narrative you like, if that's the numbers that are important to you, you know, it's vastly outperforms just about anything that you can think of. So it's very deep. There's a lot of different sides to it. We talked about then if a government or a school were to basically essentially fundraise, they would receive these NFTs, these certificates of contribution, as a gift. That's our gift to them. They own them because it's theirs, right? The property is theirs. The city of Oswego, the city of Orlando owns that property collectively, the people, the taxpayers, and therefore the taxpayers could receive that yield. And it could basically be a system for accounting and could eventually even one day, you know, supplant something like EBT or food stamps. There's huge implications for this that go. There's tons of different use cases for fundraising, for new permaculture expansion, for rewarding existing permaculture, for schools, for governments, for individuals. And it kind of fixes that bit about permaculture is expensive. Well, if we have a mechanism to fund it, it's not.
But yeah, anybody who says permaculture is expensive, I say compared to death. Like, yeah, I mean, it's the exact opposite of expensive. It's the least expensive thing we could ever do.
Yeah, when you look at unsustainable models in the long run, the true cost is far greater than the sticker price.
Yeah, one is sustainable, one's unsustainable.
Right,
one's life, one's death.
You're paying for it some way or another, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
it's brilliant and it's incredible. How far along are you with it?
So we're pretty close. We're still working out some artwork because essentially these are pieces of art that are registered, digital art, animations, cute things that encourage collectability as well, that are registered on a blockchain, which is basically just a decentralized database, so that they can be authenticated as genuine. You know, a JPEG on your desktop, your laptop, I always use this example, you can right click and hit copy and paste and essentially they're identical. An NFT, you can't do that because one is registered authentic. If you tried to make a copy, it'd say that's clearly a copy, right? So that's essential in verifying authenticity of these assets. At that point in time, it's held in a wallet. Both the chain, the marketplace, and the on-ramp, to use a technical term, getting your fiat dollars into digital dollars, and the wallet, the mechanism to hold it, are all offered by the same distribution platform that we've chosen that is certified carbon neutral, will bring carbon negative to the we're looking at Wax. Wax is, we're 99% sure we're going to be on the Wax platform. It's they have a big interest in what they call viral NFT, virtual in real life. So in other words, NFTs that represent real things, but they don't actually have a lot of it. And every one of our NFTs are real.
NFTs are going to be on every title for every piece of real estate for
exactly. And we're kind of we're on the cutting edge of that, right? Right now it's silly cat memes, but it's a proof of concept, right? It's silly videos and pictures and whatnot and collectibles and they're baseball cards and beanie babies. But you're exactly right. NFTs will be the title to your house. They'll be the deed to your property. So yeah, it's we're close. We look to finish some artwork. I'm looking to finish artwork here this next week, and we're going to mint a trial run here within the next week or so. So very close. And we're selecting a few markets.
I'm trying to understand the relationship. You're gonna sell the NFTs. Is that the idea?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes,
And
the
then-
NFTs would be sold, and basically that forms a revenue stream that we invest in permaculture, plants that we buy at nurseries and physically put in the ground, and then basically as a reward for your investment, your contribution to the distribution of permaculture, you're rewarded with the yield that those plants produce. So the hosts of that, in other words, the landowners, the hosts of that permaculture are rewarded as well.
So connect me real quick between I buy the NFT in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whenever.
Mhm.
Then what happens? Just quick step of process.
Sure. If it's an existing permaculture install, which it probably won't be, it would be one in development. If it's existing, you would start to earn. In other words, we would delegate to you a yield coin. That's released to you on a quarterly basis. You would get we call it an airdrop. You would get a gift. Suddenly you'd look at your wallet and bang, there's 200 yield coin in your wallet or whatever. You could take that yield coin then to participating food forests or farmers markets or produce stands and essentially redeem them like 100% off coupon for actual food. Now you could also give them to someone. You could also sell them for whatever the market will bear. And that's where it can be used as a token of barter and trade. But it is essentially backed 1 for 1 with 100 calories of actual produce.
I got it. So
So-
why do I need to buy the NFT to get the yield coin for the food? Sounds like I should just buy the food to get the yield coin.
You could. The mechanism for one issuing another is to, again, to
Incentivize food production.
and to model that to model the natural cycle, i.e. the value is in the permaculture, not the food. The food, it rots.
Is the yield. Yeah.
It expires, right? So the value is not necessarily in the food. The food is the end result, right? The value is in the permaculture because it's long lasting. So you could just purchase yield coin. In other words, if you were what we call a yield coin farmer compared to like a Bitcoin miner,
Yeah.
you could hold a sprout and then sell yield coin to your community for future redemption in food. Absolutely. Essentially, the sprout is the Bitcoin miner, and the yield coin is the Bitcoin.
I get that. The NFT just seems like an outlier. It seems like that's what you're going to use to raise money, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's exactly right. One of the things that we'd like to do is offer NFTs for big projects where people can donate. And check this out. If somebody, some wealthy person says, hey, I want to donate several $1 million to this cause. Okay, well, donate it through a 501c3. Chelsea's got several lined up already. They get the tax write-off for the 501c3. And then thanks to them, the food going in the ground, they also get the NFT on the side of it.
It's a further incentivization.
Gotcha.
Yeah, by an extra 40, whatever their tax bracket is. So it's a massive extra incentive.
But it's but it's fair because without that contribution, the permaculture wouldn't exist. So it is because
So
of
the
the
NFTs become the liquidity for the yield coin.
Say again.
The NFTs provide liquidity for the Y coin.
Yes, essentially. In the redemption process, the yield coin is burnt, right? So essentially, the yield coin, because it's been redeemed for its energy in food or produce. So there's some other mechanisms we're working on about expiration dates and about composting, a mechanism for unused yield. And but in every step, we want to encourage a gifting culture. We want to encourage abundance. We want to encourage sharing within the community and discourage. We have a few mechanisms to discourage hoarding and to discourage, profiteering, basically.
Brilliant idea. Yeah, I'd like to talk to you offline, or we could talk all day on this. So
Absolutely,
Yeah.
I'd love to.
I'd like to be part of that call because I've got too many questions, bog the call down. But
No.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
I'd love to
And
talk with y'all about that as well.
And I can also send you the green paper, which is the predecessor to a white paper. So we have a green paper that's been in process that explains a number of the use cases and some of the actual mechanisms how it works. So I can send that ahead of the call,
Yeah,
and then
that'd
we
be
can
great.
chat after. Okay.
Please, let's do
And-
that. Look forward to it.
I'll wrap this up, this particular piece of the puzzle, by just sharing the fundamentals. This coin is born in abundance, and it incentivizes food production and incentivizes collaboration. So now you've got local people who maybe they don't have land or they just don't feel like changing their land. Now they can invest and create communities locally. We look at the Freedom Cell Network, Rebecca Powers and John Bush, and all these different networks of freedom cells or freedom type entities that are coming together right now. Now we provide a way where they can, another way where they can come together and even monetize growing food between their entities.
That's something too, just as a final note, you mentioned why the NFT globalizes the project. It gives the ability for, obviously, if someone is looking for that future redemption in actual calories, right, they're going to want to invest in one of our pilot projects. Initially, we'll probably have 3 areas where, you know, you could actually go to the food forest and redeem coin. When we have 100 or 200 properties, which if this USDA grant goes forward, we will, where you can redeem this coin, you have a nationwide network. But recognize that there may be people in another country, live nowhere near a food forest, that may want to purchase them anyway, just to further the mission. Right.
Exactly.
In other words, here's my $50. I believe in what you guys are doing, with no intention of redeeming the yield coin at all. So there's a ton of potential there. It gives a potential for urban livers to basically, so people who live inside the city who have no means to access a permaculture and no land with which to grow it on, to participate collectively with people who have land. It puts people with resources and people with land together to create permaculture.
It's endless, the possibilities with this. Okay. So healthcare, this has been debated forever, and you know, I go to jail for saying that turmeric heals, stops cancer, right? So I'm not sure how much we want to get into this, other than to say we will have doctors there like Dr. Stanton and maybe Dr. Andrew Kaufman and a couple more that will basically say it from their perspectives on how food is. The word medicine is just a freaking scam of itself. When we simply eat foods that aren't grown with poisons, we don't need medicine. Medicine is the food. So, okay. Well, any thoughts on that? I'll open that up to if you have thoughts.
Get Kaufman and all those other people. We can get Carrie Madej and Thomas Cowan's a good one. He's the one that's not bought into germ theory, which Louis Pasteur invented. It isn't bought into it either, but that's another story. So. Yeah.
My favorite topic ever, but that's what I was going to say, is even like go up to the groups, like we do have a relationship with Weston A. Price Foundation, you know, they're all connected through that. So you can get to a lot of them through those foundations and those groups.
Yes. And we're Health Freedom for Humanity. Alex Zeck is part of our group. And so we've got an incredible group of health. And I sure don't mean to breeze over it. It's absolutely huge. I just, we have a great group of people that can speak to that. All right. Religions. Now, this is a lot of fun for me, is talking about the Garden of Eden vision, right? Because this is how it should be if we simply took out the evil and exposed the evil. And this idea that there should be just food everywhere and people getting along and a high vibration. So then to put that into to show how if the religions around the world spent 1% of their energy, their stored and potential and kinetic energy, to put food in the ground on church properties, and then use those food forests as nurseries to feed their community, to nourish their community. I mean, holy cow, that would be that'd be a game changer right there. So every one of these things would be a game changer, and we're going to all of them at the same time. And the intent is to inspire people within these entities at the highest level we can to say there's something here, to break off from their narrative of using poisons and all that stuff. So who else do we know? I don't have an imam yet. I've talked to one, but I would like to get representatives from at least the 3 major religions who all speak about the Garden of Eden in their texts. I would like to get them involved in this call.
We do have the church that has just bought the half an acre, actually a full acre blueprint in Rochester.
Awesome.
So I'm sure they would participate.
Yeah. Can we talk? I'd love to talk to the pastor or the head person there.
Pastor Dave.
Pastor Dave. Oh gosh, that's great. Oh. Can you
On a
say,
on a much smaller scale, our PMA is a ministry, Jim, the Ministry of Abundant Wellness. That's exactly what we do. So we have myself and our two founders. We've allocated 8 acres to permaculture in the future. So that's that. Our goal is to feed the masses. So I think that's something. When we talk about give us this day our daily bread, right? And we think about, there's a lot of tie-ins here. I'm trying to think, I know somewhere I may have a connection with someone in the Buddhist community. And that's obviously a much smaller niche group, but there could be tie-ins there from the secular spiritualist group and whatnot, that demographic.
Please. So yes, I'd love that.
And what about Govinda? The idea of the ministry brought that up in my mind.
Yeah, Govinda's part of it. He'll be there virtually, probably. Govinda is from Sri Lanka. He's well connected there. He said the Buddhist community they're kingmakers there. He's also involved in politics, and he's asked me to help their country because they're going through a systemic failure right now at the top. The whole country is just falling apart. Right. And I said, get 5 crops in the ground. The most easily propagated crops. You get sweet potatoes and papaya and yucca and bananas and a couple more. And anyway, so that's kind of in process right now. But yes, Govinda's, he'll be part of our conversation. Tim, you know some pretty high up people that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know them all.
Yeah. Well, let's get whoever you think would.
It's a different approach to them, though. So they're a lot like, the higher you go there, the more they become like politicians. They wait for the parade to form, then they'll run out in front of it and act like they're the ones that came up with the idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's. I've talked to you and Ian and Matthew and Brandon about the idea of a second podcast, and I want to have Ian on that so we can lean that into that big Christian thing. And then I've got 1 million+ churches, ministries, and organizations in our Freedom Place deal. And it's just a matter of how do we approach it and messaging and that sort of thing, because there's anathema in the Save the World movement that will repel some of those people or most of those people. So we just have to it's just messaging and making sure we have silos so that we don't get them all in fighting and they forget that it's really more important to feed people than it is to stand up for what you believe in.
Yes. And I couldn't agree more.
It's a real issue, it's a real issue that has to be navigated.
Right. And our message is so embarrassingly simple. It's use our resources wisely, grow food instead of half of our lawns. Okay. And then we stack the whys. All right. Anybody else on religions and okay. Corporations. Why would the corporation turn their land around their corporation into a food forest? This would be a fun one-pager. Because what it will do for the employees and the people who work within the corporation is it will increase their bottom line profits. It will increase their social credit, which is kind of getting a little scary how that whole thing is going. But it will increase in all the good ways and all the logical ways. So let's make a bullet point list of why putting a food forest on corporate land and then having corporations, instead of donating to whatever they normally donate to, they donate to putting food forests in strategic locations within their community. If they're in a localized community or if they're in a global community, we can turn, maybe Nike wants to come in and invest $10 million in turning the New York, what's that called? The big forest in New York?
Central Park.
Central Park, yeah. That turns Central Park into a food forest. Well, who wants to put their name on that? Right? of course there needs to be some collaboration, but you get the point.
I got an idea, Jim.
ESGs are obviously the forefront of most large corporations today. If they're not participating in those, they don't get money. So again, we have a simple solution, although, do they really want what we're doing to be pushed forward? Those people that have created those ESGs.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, no, just the idea of Sao Tome and Tipolis, with Titus, I think it's an interesting thing, because he obviously has the governance aspect too, but the idea that it's a corporation that is, based on his white paper and his video example, basically like says these corporations would be for profit, but it would be something where the people have a choice to engage with that. So I think he has some interesting perspective on that whole thing.
Yes, and he's got his CFO joining us.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. And then we also got Professor Richard Werner and his guy Oliver Studd joining us. He's doing the global. He was a high-level global banker who left that system to create a DAO banking system. So, I mean, isn't that amazing? We've got free cities and global bankers and all these different elements coming together for one simple message. And then let's put food in the ground. Right, and then stack all the reasons why that's beneficial.
Is the DAO banker, is he up and running with his banking entity?
He is. It's in process, and both Titus Goebel and Richard, Professor Werner, they both are looking for marketing help for their bank and their free cities. Right, we being our whole network of collaborators become the marketing team. Right, we're supporting. It's a parallel economy, and then the death and dying economy will rapidly see that these guys are going in the right direction. Let's go that way. Let's join them, because in every way they're better off than we are. Right.
Got it. Yeah. So I'll talk to you. You met Jim Wimpress, but I'll talk to Michael if I can get him. He's in this project that's slowing everything down, but his corporate connections are pretty extensive. So
cool.
I'll see what he says, because what you want there is you want to get to the big banks, the big everybody's, the too big to fails, and have them and shame them into starting to sponsor food.
Yes.
Well, and again, giving them the opportunity, I'm thinking of the transportation sector again from the climate perspective, to give them the opportunity to say, don't you want to be the one in your sector to do this? Right. Again, in the same kind of delivery as a politician's delivery. Don't you want to be the one with this campaign? I'm thinking of, Hertz Penske Corporation versus Enterprise. Well, Hertz, don't you want you're responsible for a lot of emissions in the environment. Wouldn't you want to be the one who is offsetting that by using your corporate properties and your philanthropic dollars to build food forests and communities that you affect? I don't know.
Love it.
I can think of other like sustainable or environmental companies like Patagonia or the Good Company or
Stephen,
Aspiration.
Bullet point those, and then what I just heard, I think, goes throughout the whole group. We create a competition in a way, where we're about collaboration, but politicians and the military and education, people, the competition brings the best in people in a lot of ways. So we say just what you said. We said, wouldn't you like to be the leader in this movement towards freedom and self-reliance and good for the planet? I love that.
It should be easy, right? You already have land, you already have like assets, and you already have philanthropic dollars, right? They already have a practice of this. It's just a matter of shifting it from one place to another.
Yeah,
like it shouldn't be too hard. He says, famous last words.
You saw a lot of the companies do this with solar.
Yeah,
where they were like, look at how much we're offsetting. We're the best, and then someone else would come along beside them and go, oh, we're better than you because we've done more. Same kind of attack strategy.
It is. Oh, that's so cool. And here comes Sprouts and Yield Coin as an added layer of benefit. And then I think the other added layer of benefit is that we're going to shine a light on the entities that are doing it. We're going to have a public forum and say, these companies just put in this much food in the ground, and all of a sudden they use that as, you know, marketing.
That's great marketing for them. That's why all these companies give philanthropically anyway.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
That's really it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that it's exactly why I'm saying these environmental, social, and governance criteria, it's like the word of the day in big corporate America right now and globally. The investors are looking for social responsibility, right? Environmental responsibility, those kind of things are the terms that they're using. Really, it's a big play on words, but we can, again, exploit the messaging that they're utilizing against them.
Right. Coca-Cola is probably one of the biggest polluters in the history of the world. I'll take $1 million of permaculture funded by Coca-Cola.
Absolutely.
Like, it's $1 million worth of permaculture in the ground that feeds communities. Like, if they benefit from it, okay. You know, I don't care. Let's put food in the ground and feed people.
Let's put food in the ground. Okay, that's so cool. So how's everybody feeling? There's one more piece of this puzzle, major one that we'll get to in a second. But taking a look at all these elements, what other elements should we add?
We probably should put in the environmental stuff. I don't know necessarily where that goes.
The whole thing is, oh, you mean like the environmental lobby? I don't know what you mean.
Well, just encompassing that part of the messaging around all of it. You know, we've got a massive climate change narrative and environment being destroyed narrative.
So
oil,
permaculture.
So like talking about what.
Right. Who else is doing that? Right.
Yes.
And get them in under our wing as well.
Yeah.
Right? There's a ton of people with that messaging.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is we define permaculture more, because that covers all of it. That covers environmental as the number one thing it covers, right? It is environmental. And as a result of treating our environment wisely, we have all these benefits.
Well, I think he's saying like developing a list of kingmakers or developing a list of influencers, you know, within that specific genre, whether it's people offering carbon offset credits or whatever. Or
that's a good point.
Like environmentally focused companies or sustainability companies. We're not in this alone, right? Within that.
That's okay. So 501c3s and environmental focused companies or something.
Right.
That's a good point. That's a great point. That's a big.
Right. There's all the, you know, what Jim, we talked about there's that Plant the Tree company that plants a tree for anybody that donates $1 kind of thing. Like, that's a huge organization, a multi-million-dollar operational budget, right? There's a ton of groups like that where we could say, well, we plant trees, you know? Like,
okay, so 501c3s, environmental groups, and NGOs, would that fit in there?
Probably, yeah.
Okay. So Lindsay, let's take note of that. And then let's maybe start listing the top dogs in that arena.
Here's an organization, 10 Tree. For every piece of apparel you buy from them, they plant 10 trees.
Yeah, I've got Aspirations, that bank account that every time you swipe your credit card, or your debit card, they plant a tree. That's a big one.
Cool.
So there's a ton of companies like that. Some of that's going to fall under corporate, but I think when we're talking about corporate, it's more of that shaming. Don't you want to be the ones who get here first? Don't you want to be the ones that slap this sticker on your branding? Whereas under the environmental kind of sector, it's like, hey guys, you guys are talking about this. We're doing this too.
Okay, so as you said that, we basically inspire those entities who are already putting, it sounds like millions, if not more, into planting trees to add one word, fruit tree.
Yeah.
Right. So in other words, it's money already going out, and we have a vehicle to use that money even more wisely.
Mm-hmm.
And they get yield and sprout on top of it.
I think that's really, I keep saying there's a pattern here, right? Whether it's food, not bombs, or plants, not bullets, or giving to these kind of disposable philanthropic points versus giving to the creation of permaculture food forests, or governmental spending budgets versus permaculture, lawns, food, not lawns. Every one of these is just diversion. We're not asking for anything new. We're just diverting one fund from here to there, right?
Yeah, in all of these cases, that's exactly,
All of
it's
them.
energy. We're taking energetic systems that are liabilities to society in a lot of ways that use energy, and we're turning that liability into an asset.
Yeah.
Or a better asset, a higher yield producing asset.
Right. It's like it's like irrigation almost, right? We're just shifting the flow.
Yeah, I love it. All right. So let's add the NGO/501c3/environmental groups, Lindsay. And then Brandon, can you go up a little bit to the list that I have compiled so far? Other way, sorry. Yeah. Okay, so there will be more than this, but this is kind of a starter group. Now, what the intention is what we're going to do is we're going to start with all of our one-pagers. And then we're going to build upon those one-pagers, and then we're all going to speak, and we'll probably have maybe 7 or 8 or 10 or 12 different speakers that speak for maybe 10 to 15 minutes each on the 4th of July. And it'll be live streamed. It will also be recorded. I just talked to Akira Matthew. I think Akira is going to be the guy that's doing, so we're going to have multiple levels. Like Dirk Pullman, he is a major documentarian with over 20 documentaries. He's solved murders through his documentaries. He's been in trouble with governments because he exposed their criminality. He's an awesome guy. And we're going to bring this in different languages and so on. And we're going to talk several times now. In fact, Sayer G just texted me again today. He's got a social media platform in beta right now that has 10,000 content producers that are signing up for his entity called Unite. The name of that right there, knowing who he is, that's exciting, because that's what this is all about. So my original hope was to, have a couple hundred influencers share the same message, or better said, I think, cover the same event, cover the same historical event on the same day, right? Because that's what they are. They're basically telling the world what's going on from their perspective. They're today's news people. And they cover the event. If we would have had 200, including the people I'm thinking of, Sam Tripoli and Crow 777 and Greg Carlwood and Charlie Robinson and Robert Scott Bell and all these folks, if that's all that we had done, and of course, Jean and Kristen Nolan, it would be massive, because even to that degree, I don't think it's ever been done. Like, the closest thing to this is what's going to happen now with him bringing in his group and everybody bringing in their groups is, well, I think about when Chris Rock got slapped by, what's his name? What's this guy's name? Will Smith.
Will
right?
Smith.
Billions of people around the world spent a lot of time watching that. Now, in our case, it's actually going to make a difference. Billions of people around the world are going to see this, because it's going to be so spread out there that you'd have to have your head under the sand to not see it. It'll be like V for Vendetta when he took over the TV stations. Back then, that's all they had was TV and radio. He took over TV. Now we have what's relevant, and we're speaking to our network on all these platforms. And this is where it goes. So the 4th of July is going to be the day when this goes out to the world, to hundreds of millions of people. Any thoughts on that?
I think it sounds amazing. I'm definitely defer to your all's expertise in that. That is not my area of expertise. So it sounds very exciting to hear. And to be a part of it, I guess. But that's outside of my expertise for sure.
Is it a bite, Jim? Are you going to chunk it down, or is this going to be the entire sort of last day?
We're going to live stream probably 3 hours, just so after we get our messages kind of dialed in, then we're going to live stream the whole thing. And we're going to also record it, we'll edit it, and we'll put it out that way as well through all of these channels. So many don't have the capability of live streaming, but they'll get the edited version the next morning.
How flexible is it in terms of the schedule? If let's say Tim brings in more people and so on, how much flexibility do you have?
A lot of flexibility. Yeah. A logical amount of flexibility. You know, I mean, at the last day, if Joe Rogan and Tony Robbins and Russell Brand show up and say, hey, we want to be part of this, which they should be. If they heard about it and they knew what we were doing, they will do that. We'll make room for them. You know, if Trump's kid shows up. Anyway, you get what I'm saying, is the biggest impact. We want to turn the world, help the world see that we can win this, bringing people out of their despair. The depression is through the roof, the divorce, the suicides, all these unfortunate, sick things, this dis-ease and disease is going up. And the minute these folks hear our message on the 4th of July, they're going to start feeling better, because they're going to have a connected community, united community that takes this message, and they'll see that there is a way to win this war. Before that, most people, and people I talk to every day, they don't see a way to win this war. This is the way to win the war.
So if we're going to go out and find some people for this event, what's the hook? Is there a piece of collateral? Is there something other than this email that allows us to lay the groundwork? Does that work?
Can you restate the question?
If I was to call people that I know to be involved in this event, other than my voice, and to say that there's an event on July 4th, and the explanation that we have here, is there something else that can lay the groundwork for that? Is there a flyer? Is there a white paper? Is there just the things that you would wrap around an event typically?
Okay, so the number one thing, so we're going to do an email 10 days out, which is tomorrow, 3 days out, and then 1 day out. And the video that's being recorded right now, along with kind of a one-pager, will be the next level. Then we'll do another one where we'll bring in a lot more people, and we'll show the one-pagers. And that'll be in basically 8 days from now. And then we'll do one more, and then we'll be at the event. And of course, we're open to better things. Like that's why I called this particular meeting. But what other ideas do you have about things that we could put in place?
I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, Evan, but your question was how to get more people put onto this list that's in the email. Is that what you mean? Yeah.
I mean, I hesitate a little bit, Jim, because I think your reaction might be what happened the other day when we were talking, and I'm pointing out all the problems, and I don't want to be that guy. Yes, that's what I was saying, Chelsea, is like, if I was to call someone that was a contact of mine to be involved in this event, I'm not sure how I would connect him to what's happening with this event. I'm better prepared now that I'm hearing this call. I'm just wondering. Yeah,
just if you have somebody that you think should be in, because the event, we want it to be around 30 people, so we can keep it, kind of manageable. And so if you have somebody that you think should be in the event, then have them make a connection, and I would love to chat with them.
Okay.
That's what I was going to say. If they were up in those type of people that belong there, then just connecting them with Jim would be perfect.
It's got to be Zach Bush, though.
Love to talk with Zach Bush. Yeah. All right. So on a scale of 1 to 10, in your hearts and in your minds, how do you see this? How do you feel this event right now? And you don't necessarily have to say it, or you could say it, doesn't matter to me, but because I've got a follow-up question that's more important. But feel like on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel or experience this event?
I think the idea is amazing, and I think it needs to get out there to as many people as possible. I've been just trying to think the last few minutes on how to make it as viral as possible, thinking about the Chris Rock slapping Will Smith. You know, it goes viral, and people unfortunately like to share things that are, you know, not the greatest news. So I was just thinking maybe somehow there could be a compilation of all the things that are happening to the food systems. All the, you know, we hear about one thing, you know, the cows dying and something like that. But if there was like a compilation that can go together to kind of inspire people to really see the gravity of the situation and then move forward with the solution.
The contrast.
Marketing piece that was showcasing all the major things that are tying this food crisis together and how big it's going to be, and then a solution. And it could be just flashes, right? Flash, 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 things going up in flames, no food, fields desolate, store shelves, etc. Flash all the negative, and then here's the solution, and do it all in under 30 seconds.
Boom. I love that. That contrast will set the stage. I think that's fantastic.
And I think the possibilities are obviously tremendous. It's getting the people in the room, getting those people to take some action based on what we decide at the end of it all. So having them share that messaging and just really growing it through that viral aspect that we talk about, reaching into their global audience. So the more people with a large following there, the better.
Yep. I love it.
I'm curious on like the outcome itself. I know it's all about creating momentum, and there's not necessarily going to be a one size fits all at the end of it for everybody, but to me, the takeaway in general is that it's amazing how connected we really are, and how there's so many people that are actually seeing through it and want to do something that's actionable. So that's something that, you know, if we're thinking of people like Catherine Austin Fitts and people that have things that are already kind of solution oriented, having a place for them to land, obviously our website, you know, of course, like here's somewhere you can land, but like trying to bring it all together in a little tidy kind of dismount, you know.
What are we calling this? Is this a summit? Is this a, you know, is this a freedom abundance meetup? Like, do we have a title for the event necessarily?
A title that can be evolved for sure. Right now it's called Thunderclap, but that was just because it's stuck out, right? But I love the word summit. I love mastermind. I
think at its root, what we're talking about is, you know, this isn't the end, right? This event isn't the end. It's quite the opposite, right? This is the beginning of kind of pulling in all of these people that we know from our networks and saying, hey, we've got this idea, we've got this structure, and we think we can all play a part in it. And if you think so too, we want to get on board. And so I think that I think what we promote here is that there's discussion, there's debate, there's speakers, right? I think that's the deliverables, right, of this event. What are we delivering? Well, we're delivering we're opening a dialogue with a global community to address some of the world's biggest issues.
We're going way past opening a dialogue. We're giving them the design blueprint for freedom of humanity. Right. Yeah.
So I think that's, you know, so I think it's that specific narrative. I would like that copy. What is that copy that, you know, what are we doing on July 4th? Well, it's a summit of like-minded individuals to do blah blah blah, to do XYZ, right? So who's deciding on that language, I guess. And then from there, I think you know, I don't know. I assume there's social media consumables and posts and this sort of thing. You know, do we have graphics and that kind of thing? I plan to. Jim and I registered some domain names associated to Sprouts and YieldCoin. recently, so I plan to get the materials, the graphic materials that I've produced regarding like the infographics and things that I've put out so far up on that, so we can direct people there as well. So we have a couple places to direct people. We can direct people to Food Forest Abundance. We can direct people to Sprouts and ycoin.farm. Both of those are registered. So those I'll make that a priority to build those out. From there, I think, what are we trying to do there? Obviously, someone can purchase a blueprint. We need a way to capture.
Okay,
that.
so yeah, so that is the next thing, Chelsea. That's a really important thing that Stephen's bringing up. We want to have a way to capture and store and redirect that energy. One of the things we want to do here is we want to share that anybody can start growing food. This is not about buying a blueprint. This is about growing food, however is best for the individual who's on the other side listening. We show them and we talk about how they can go to the store and buy cucumbers and tomatoes and potatoes, and they can start their own garden, right? We want to layer it so it's for everybody. Something else came to mind. Oh, Give, Send, Go. So Chelsea has set up a Give, Send, Go account. And what we want to do is we want to bullet point as a call to action the different things that will be involved in the Give, Send, Go. One of the things we want to do is we want to fund a feature-length documentary for the Land of Plenty, right? That shows us going into all these areas with Emmy award-winning producers. And that's the beauty of it. We've got Emmy award-winning, our marketing team are Emmy award winners. That's a pretty good marketing team, right? So we can stack all these things together and show who the people are and why it's relevant. Anyway, the Give, Send, Go, we're going to say, here's the call to action. If you want to donate to this, or this, you can do it through this mechanism. And as a result of your donation, when it's ready, you may be gifted some sprouts or some yield coin or something.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
That speaking politics, that's a guy running for the 4th district in U.S. Congress in Virginia. That's why I had to take that call. Sorry. So
cool.
And he's, you know, Clay Clark is. You can look up the Thrive Time and Clay Clark. That was Leon Benjamin. He's a pastor that's got the Republican nomination there in the 4th district in Virginia. So
I think I talked to him the other day. Did you set me up with that call?
No.
Okay, no, it's a different one, Pastor. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So, okay. Sorry.
Can I jump in real quick, Joe?
Yeah.
So Tim, we were just talking about, you know, at the end of the event, how we can sort of capture people, their enthusiasm. You know, is it a good idea to have landing pages set up so they can go and get on a list of some kind? I mean, what do you want to do there?
Yeah. We got to strategize what the messaging is going to be, and then what the ask is going to be, and then we want to measure it. Can't manage it unless we measure it. So yeah, that's for sure.
My thought is to have a whitelist for Sprouts NFT launch. So in other words, if you're interested in, you know, contributing to this, you know, join, you know, our whitelist so that you're pre-approved or whatever, maybe advanced access, whatever. But then it sounds like the Give, Fund, Go campaign is probably another, you know, termination point. It's another final place that we can send people. Obviously mailing lists and that sort of thing, social media engagement. What else? What am I not thinking of?
Tim, should I talk to Bishop Leon again, or Bishop Benjamin? I did talk to him the other day.
Did you talk to him?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's great. Well, that's yeah. Let's talk offline and we can strategize on getting to him.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So what's going to be do we want multiple calls to action? Like if some people want to sign up for the email or donate, or is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's give something for everybody. Again, we want to make it abundantly clear that this isn't Food Forest Abundance or Yield Coin or any of these different entities putting on this. This is a group of collaborators coming together, and we're going to give a lot of different solutions. I don't even want ours I like, you know how in some places you got French in bold and English is half the size and regular. So let's not do anything that gives the perception that this is about a business. We teach regenerative capitalism, but we don't want to put that out in front. We want to have food forest abundance as one of many things that are available to support people growing food. Everything from free help to, if they want to speed up time, they can learn permaculture from Verge, or they can get a blueprint from Food Forest Abundance. Jeff Lawton is probably going to be on the call, and David Holmgren and Greg Nibbs. So we'll have different options there, and Food Forest Abundance will be one of them. And believe me, we're going to do very well.
What are you doing for the virtual participants? Like I've got a court thing on the 1st or the 2nd.
We've got a guy, we just hired a guy, and Chelsea, in case you didn't know, we paid that fella for the live stream and the service to bring in people. So really it'll be Zoom. It'll just be like a Zoom meeting.
Well, you're gonna have to have cameras or something, or how?
Yeah, the guy. In fact, Chelsea, could you
and
double check what they have? And because I'm not a tech guy, but Chelsea will get that.
Okay.
We should probably be streaming through YouTube and Facebook at the same time. Even Instagram.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a platform that I've used in the past for theatrical productions called Stream Everywhere. So that might be something to ask for, where you can have a single stream. That I think it can go to 12 or 14 platforms. So that might be something to ask. Hey, do you guys use Stream Everywhere? Because then it can be, Facebook and Twitter and
I love it.
Places.
It's almost like part of what we ask the people who come to actually all do the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? Imagine every one of them was streaming everywhere on every one of their platforms all at the same time.
Yeah.
I wonder too if that's something that we could ask the streaming provider. Hey, is there a hash or something that you can provide us of your stream that people can restream, right?
Yeah.
Live. And that is
Definitely.
Platforms.
Definitely. I can see Chelsea writing. Good. All right, folks, that's all I got. Any other ideas? And we'll have another meeting. Well, first of all, we'll get the email out that kind of puts these in different categories, these elements. And then we'll all chip away as ideas come. And I know we're all busy with other stuff, but thank you so much for being part of this strategy session. And then we'll send this out tomorrow, basically to everybody.